Welcome back to the Startup Show. I'm John Biggs. Today I have Scott Hickle. He's the founder of Throne. Throne is a really cool hardware project. I haven't seen anything like it. Scott, I was really excited when I saw your tweet. I forget what you said exactly, but for me to be interested in a poop sensing machine, I think it was a pretty good tweet. So welcome.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for having me, John. Yeah, so the tweet, I think the one you're referencing, kind of a throwaway tweet I shot off last week, basically just saying, to monitor cardiovascular health and respiratory health, you have Aura, Whoop, Garmin,
Hmm.
dozen other options, Apple Watch. But to monitor your gut health and your hydration, you have Throne. Um, and then I editorialized just saying I'm so freaking proud of what we've accomplished in a little
Yeah,
over a year.
exactly.
And I posted what was the first picture of the actual prototype that's ever hit the timeline,
Mm.
and struck a nerve, I guess, because we got to this conversation through it.
Yeah, well, you got like it's. I think for a hardware project generally, it's really super difficult. I think I was just reading a thing about Allbirds, and they're not a hardware thing, but it's like a direct consumer physical play, and that's super super hard. And so I'm trying to give folks like that the benefit of the doubt, especially when it's an important project like this. So why don't you tell me about the product?
Yeah, it's a camera that clips onto the side of your toilet and runs computer vision models over the contents of your toilet bowl to tell you about your health. So right now we're looking at hydration and gut health. So high level gut health, right? The analogy I use for this is to like a microbiome test, what like wearing like a Whoop is to a
Mhm.
blood test, right? So, microbiome test, you take a, scoop of your stool and send it off in the mail. And then a month later, you get like a very detailed, 120 biomarker report of all the different, inflammatory markers and like, like a microbiota
Mhm.
in your gut. Similarly, Whoop, you get way fewer metrics, but you get trend lines, right? It's like flipping it on its side. So instead of getting 100 data points, but at one point in time, you're getting, five or six data points, but multiple times a day. And that's what we're trying to bring to hydration and gut health. So it's literally a camera that clips on the side of the toilet bowl, and then we're looking at the frequency and consistency of your bowel movements, your strain, your hydration, your urinary flow rate, and then I can kind of talk through what the conditions are
Mhm.
that those biomarkers is relevant to. And then ultimately, kind of the vision for this is being able to detect colon cancer early by looking for trace amounts of fecal occult blood. And we won't be able to be diagnostic. I just want to
Yeah, of
caveat
course.
that there's a lot of things that can cause blood in your stool, but if we can detect what's called fecal occult blood, so that's blood that's invisible to the naked eye, most people miss it, and that's a big part of the reason colon cancer is so deadly. But if we can detect those trace amounts of blood and say, hey, you had blood in your stool 20 of the last 30 days, you should go talk to the doctor. That GI puts you in for a colonoscopy and they find a precancerous polyp or a cancerous lesion, like that will save lives.
Mhm.
And that is tremendously motivating to me.
Now, just before we start, how do you know that it's my stool?
It's a great question. So the version of the device we have right now, when you onboard onto it and pair it with your app, you assign yourself a button. So it has four buttons on
Okay,
the side.
okay.
And you just push one of the four buttons, so there's the John button,
Mhm.
the stop button, the John's kid button, whichever
Mhm.
configuration your household is. In the future, what we're building towards is a version of the device that is completely passive and uses Bluetooth beaconing. So it'll have like a motion sensor. It'll wake up when it detects that someone's walked into the room. And then if you have your phone with you, it'll say, okay, that's John's iPhone. We can safely attribute this session to him.
Okay, I was worried you were gonna like shoot like a little NFC tag into my glute or something. That might be a little,
No, it's a good idea. We'll think about that one.
yeah, like a whatchamacallit, like tagging a bird out in the wilderness. Just put something in there. All right, very cool. All right, so you actually have the product. You have a prototype. But you want to walk us through it?
Yeah, sure. So this is the first golden functional sample I've got here in my hands. If you're listening to this, I'm just holding up a really nice box.
Hmm.
But as I open the box, I will take out of it a device that's about 5 inches by 6 inches by 6 inches.
Hmm.
And it's just a camera that clips onto your side of your toilet. So if you go to thronescience.com, you can actually see pictures of it if you're, again, listening to this interview. But here's the four user buttons I was telling you about,
Hmm.
right? option button. So if I push my user button, then it turns on, and you can see the little flashing red light to indicate, universal sign of I'm recording right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I finish, I push that button again and starts flashing green to indicate that that's being uploaded. Once this finishes uploading, I will get a push notification to my phone a few minutes later, basically telling me my gut health and hydration from that session. So I get a notification that it's finished processing and can go and see the results and then track the trends over time.
Now, is this about urine, or when I go pee, do I press a button?
Yeah, you can do both.
Okay.
So I have personally tracked like every bowel movement I've had in the last 6 months, as
Okay.
well as, most of my pee sessions, as long as I'm at the office or, at home.
I think there might be like an alternative non-health related thing for this.
Pointed down, right? Like I think
Okay.
the big thing we found is that as long as we're explicit that the camera's pointed down, people aren't afraid of it.
Okay. Okay.
And the reason is camera pointed up is so much liability.
Mm-hmm.
Just quick aside, but like some researchers at Stanford actually did a version of this device that has a camera
Wow.
up and identifies the user based on their unique rectal fingerprint.
Okay.
That's a bridge too far for us. So we're staying as far away from that as humanly possible. But the OnlyFans thing is,
I'm just putting it out there. It's another. There's hardware is hard, right? Hardware is a hard sell. So if you had some kind of like alternative service associated with that, there's something for everybody out there. All right. What's the plan for rollout? What's it going to take to start manufacturing these things?
so yeah, great question. We are currently manufacturing them ourselves, building the first 100 beta units, right? So we have this unit that you just saw. We have 4 other units that our team is using to develop against, and those are primarily just like the circuit board assembly. We haven't fully assembled them so that they're easier to play with and make tweaks to the hardware. We've ordered the components for the next 100 units, so we'll be assembling those ourselves, and then we'll probably do another 1 or 2 iterations as we continue to improve the device and work towards that passive design I was talking about, where we incorporate motion sensing and Bluetooth beaconing. And once we get to that, we'll have to go to contract manufacturing, and the goal is to get to the contract manufacturing stage where we can actually manufacture thousands of these and start selling direct to consumers probably this time next year. But in between that, do a couple more runs of several hundred to like maybe a thousand. And really the goal for that is get people's feedback on the user experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is this something that you will use every single day, multiple times a day? And obviously, the more passive it is, the more likely it is that people will be compliant.
And what are you doing in terms of pre-funding? You do a round, or you do Kickstarter?
Yeah, so we have raised some money already. We have explored going the crowdfunding route. We actually had a chance to chat with Matteo, the co-founder and CEO of 8 Sleep,
Mm-hmm.
and he launched 8 Sleep on Indiegogo back in the day. Did not recommend going that route. He said it creates a lot of headaches. Ultimately, they were able to solve them and it worked out in their favor. But he and Will Ahmed from Whoop are both very adamant about growing in a slow and controlled fashion, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to going the crowdfunding route. You end up rushing to manufacture your first 5,000 units, and then you drop back down to a trickle of selling a couple hundred a month. It frustrates your investors, it frustrates the manufacturing partners, and they are both
Okay.
quite adamant that we take the approach that we've ultimately settled on, which is successive batches of increasing size.
Interesting. All right. Very cool. Yeah. What's your background in terms of direct consumer sales, or what's the background in this in general?
So I did mechanical engineering undergrad, and then I've worked in product management the rest of my career at various startups. Have not done anything direct to consumer outside of one crypto project at Royal. It's a company tokenizing music royalties, and they had a really big moment back in 2021 when I was there. But really the most relevant experience I have with this is just both of my parents are physicians and my dad's a medical device
Mhm.
inventor. It's just this, the house I was raised
Interesting.
in, right? My dad had a 20,000 square foot lab out, 20 minutes into the country outside of the town I was raised in the middle of West Texas, where land is dirt cheap. And, growing up every weekend, I'd go hang out with him and the engineers from Texas Tech working on, They were doing like class 3 anesthetic medical devices, like way more serious than what
Hmm.
Wolf was on, right? They were actually, life support systems. But this is just you know, the culture I was raised in. And so it's also just incredibly helpful to have, two physicians as parents and a dad who I can call on and be like, hey, I have a question about intellectual property, or, how do you think about this engineering problem? And, he actually has strong opinions.
What's the plan for continued revenue after you start selling these things? Subscription kind of thing, or?
Yeah, so we're following the Aura model. Basically, you buy the hardware up front for $299 and then $6 a month thereafter for the ongoing membership, which unlocks, the deeper layer of analytics than just the kind of high level abstraction of your, gut health score.
And that's all. Is that going through like the App Store? Or are you going to do it just online? Because it sounds like you're going to have an app associated with this too.
Yes, yes. So we'll probably go online. This is, for all intents and purposes, people think about this as a hardware purchase, not a software purchase, and the Apple tax is very real.
Exactly. Okay. Very cool. Yeah. How's responses been? It sounds like that tweet got some responses, but what are people saying about this?
It's amazing how positive the response has been. That tweet, I posted it, last week. Complete throwaway. I wasn't thinking anything about it. It was just, we'd gotten some pictures back, and I was excited about them, and threw up the tweet, and then within 24 hours got almost 500,000 views, and the response has been like overwhelmingly positive. A few people have reached out and been like, I thought this was a joke, and then I like saw the website and I realized it
Mhm.
was serious. I'm like, I love this. We have an autoresponder that goes out when people sign up for our wait list, and basically, it's just me emailing them saying, hey, thanks for signing up for the wait list. What are you excited about this? And the response is basically 50-50. I'm just someone who really cares about my health and I want to live a long time and I want to age proactively and gracefully. And then the other 50% is people with a chronic gut health condition who are looking for better ways to monitor and manage that condition. So that's inclusive of people with, irritable bowel syndrome and inflammatory bowel diseases like Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. But yeah, it's just so fun because like I called my dad the morning after and I was just like verge of tears, like holy shit, this is gonna work.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
work so hard on something for so long in relative silence, and to have your first moment of making a little bit of noise and it just be overwhelmingly positive is a really really cool moment.
Well, that's great. I mean, the market fit seems to be almost instantaneous, which is ideal. I mean, there's lots of hardware projects out there that are like, even the Raspberry Pi, if you want to think about it, that as a hardware project, there's no market fit. It's just like, I think that's a cool thing and I would like to have one. And luckily it was only $5. Whereas this $299, but there's definitely product market fit almost instantaneously because there's plenty of people who are crazy about their health or sick and they need this thing, which is really great. So, what are next steps? What are you guys looking forward to in the next 6 months?
Yeah, right now we are heads down on delivering these first batch of beta units. So we capped the units that we are pre-selling at 55 units. We're holding another 10 units back for the office so that, we can test them, give them to our teammates and have them at home. We're, allocating some units to researchers at Stanford and University of Chicago who want to do some work with us. We are allocating some units to investors, but, right now it's just heads down on getting these units out the door and into people's hands so we can start getting real world feedback, right? Next, after that, we will, poke our heads up and start looking to raise our seed round. And then we continue to iterate and, we're manufacturing 100 now. We'll probably do the next batch between like 250 and 500 and go from there.
Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, it seems like a nice solid rollout. All right, very cool. So we'll keep our eye on you. Let me know when there's an actual unit. I'll review it on the site here.
I would absolutely love to.
Yeah, well, we could test my poop, which is kind of fun to say too, really, if you think about it.
It's so fun. That's one of the craziest parts about this is getting to have conversations with people about their
Hmm.
poop is genuinely rewarding.
Yeah.
It's deeply intimate subject matter that you can't help but laugh about. And like even people with chronic gut health
Hmm.
conditions, like debilitating sometimes, right? Like particularly people with IBD, but like it's still poop and it's just so human and like fun. And
Hmm.
you leave making friends like with every conversation. You can't have a conversation about poop
Nice.
for 2 minutes and not laugh.
All right. Well, good luck. I'm looking forward to seeing the rollout. It's going to be really, really cool. So the website is thronescience.com. Throne Science. You can see the little prototype hanging out on the toilet. which looks pretty cool. Scott, thank you for joining us. This has been amazing.
Hey, John, thank you so much for having me.
All right. This has been the Startup Show. I'm John Biggs. We'll see you next episode.